Welcome to Porch Play Chats, sponsored by the American Association for the Child's Right to Play, or our shortened name, IPA USA. IPA USA is the USA affiliate of the International Play Association, and as part of our efforts to promote play, we do Porch Play Chats, and there's almost 300 of them. And you can find each of them because they're free to you at the IPAUSA.org website. And up in that top right-hand corner, subscribe to our YouTube channel. I don't know, friend us on Facebook and follow us, I think, on Instagram, but I could be wrong. And on YouTube and Facebook, magically, every Monday morning, a new Porch Play Chat will appear in your feed. I'm Deb Lawrence, and I'm co-president of IPA USA. And with me as my co-facilitator is Lindsay Jeske. Lindsay is joining us and is the membership person and the graphic artist. She does a lot. And with us, joining us on the porch is Debbie Rhea. And Debbie's going to talk to us about creating spaces and places and give us some history of a superintendent who has really done this sort of work in introducing LiiNK and implementing LiiNK in his schools. And so she's going to talk to us about you don't have to have the big stuff. It can be little stuff. So Debbie is a professor of kinesiology. I always have trouble with that, and a founding director of the LiiNK Project at Texas Christian University. Dr. Rhea began as a teacher and coach in public schools and then transitioned to the university for a 45-year span in education. She's received LiiNK national media attention on the Today Show and NBC Nightly News regarding the need for recess in schools. She's an author, researcher, and motivational speaker, educational consultant, and behavior change trainer, and be watching in the next several months for a book from Debbie. So talk to us about how the superintendent is doing this stuff.
Yeah, so thanks, Deb, for having me on. So let me back up a little bit. With the LiiNK Project, there are things that when I first started, I didn't realize would be as necessary to change landscapes or to adjust landscapes so that they were more appropriate for the kids. But what we found over the first few years is that, as long as you had some natural environments, like things that had water that they could engage in, or rocks, or different types of trees that they could climb, that were climbable trees, things like that were awesome, right? Mm-hmm. But what we didn't think about, and what has happened with this particular superintendent is, and I'll just go ahead and say, is Dr. Jim Chadwell, who just recently retired from Eagle Mountain Saginaw ISD here in Fort Worth, Texas. He was always a believer in we needed kids outside. He knew that was a necessary piece of what we did. And he would also say, yeah, Debbie is very convincing on if she says we need to do something, she always was very convincing that we needed to do this. But at the same time, he's such a believer that when he started, he said, so what do we need to do outdoors? And I said, well, right now, the blank landscapes are just as good as landscapes that have stuff in them. Mm-hmm. And, if you recall, I took away balls from the playground. I don't know if you remember that or not, but I took away the balls from the playground, especially when we started with our pre-K, kinders, first, second graders. And you might go, and you might even be thinking, I don't know if people are going to actually see your facial expressions, but it's like trying to hide the fact, what, you're taking a ball away from a pre-K kid? Well, I'll just give a hint to the book coming. But the problem is that our culture is so driven by sport at very early ages that our children are no longer just wanting to play with a ball. They no longer just want to roll the ball or try to catch the ball and kick it, at the same time. You can just see that, right? The little bitty 2-year-old is trying to go after the ball that's on the ground, and they kick it before they can actually grab it. I mean, no, anymore these days, it's like stop and kick the ball. They're being trained to do this. So what's happening is you get on play spaces with kids, and even though a ball might represent for a young child earlier in generations that it's for motor coordination or hand-eye coordination or hand-foot coordination, anymore today, it's another way to introduce sport to children. So I took the balls away and said, we're not going to do that with LiiNK. You're going to play with other things. You can do hula hoops, you can do frisbees, you can do whatever you want other than, but a ball, I don't care what it is, will represent a sport. So that was one of the first things I did. And Dr. Chadwell was very intrigued by this and said, this is interesting. And still, even when he would put in a new elementary school, he would put a court, a flat surface where a court could be there. He would put that on elementary playgrounds and, would just say, well, maybe at some point they may use it, or maybe after school they may use it. And what's interesting is even after you put them in, that's not where they were drawn to. Because he also did some other things based on what we talked about. Number one is that the recess area or the physical education area is not the only space that can be used for recess, unstructured play, getting out and either being active or just hanging out and visiting and being social. What a concept, right? I mean, social skills are so inept at this point that we have to create spaces where kids would want to congregate or be part of something. And so Dr. Chadwell heard this and said, I love that idea that we want to use other spaces on the campuses. And so his brain started thinking. And as a superintendent, when you get the brain of the superintendent being creative, you're moving places, right? You got it. And so we would continue to have our conversations, but he landed a really good design guy who said, I'm as creative as you are. I'm ready to do some things. And it revolved around some very basic principles. One is granite stones. You drop a granite stone in that can sit in the middle of a space. Used to be a flat, open field, right? You're not interrupting the field. You're just dropping a granite rock in the middle of that field. It does a lot of things in a child's mind, or a middle schooler's mind, or a high schooler's mind. It literally draws them to this piece of rock, right? He also loves, and I've talked about berms in the past, but he is really putting berms in. And when I say a berm, we're talking, grass or dirt mounds, big and small, and he'll drill a hole through the middle of it and put something in it as a tunnel.
Love it.
In the middle of a field or out in the playground space. Now, we've been doing that kind of stuff in other school districts as well, but he's doing it in new school areas. He's saying, we're not doing the traditional things that we've done in schools in the past. This is how we're going to design the front of our school, the side where the parking lots are, the back where, we might have the trucks coming back there, but we also have spaces where we can put these other things back there. And they're ADA appropriate because they're natural pieces that kids of any type can enter into a tunnel. They can crawl or roll down, one of these little berms. They can use the granite to, just step up and sit on the granite. But then he also uses trees, the natural effect of the trees. He makes sure that he doesn't cut down any trees, or very few, when they build their new campuses. He makes sure that he can do different parts of the campus where they might even have an open door concept, where I've seen it on a gym before, but he'll do it on the side of the building where they can open it up and kids can just use it as an indoor outdoor space.
Nice.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking so many different things that I'm going to use it on the global stage with the USA, well, the IPA global conference coming up. I'm going to present on it because I really think that this is something that people need to think about. And especially, it's not about a space being dedicated for kids to move or for kids to congregate. It's about using every space you have. One of the things Dr. Chadwell talks about, and I totally agree with, is you want spaces that are not confined to a number of people, right? You can have a get together, or let's say it's a parent teacher conference meeting, like where they're going to meet on campus and talk about even SHACs, the school health advisory councils. I mean, these things can meet, but you've got a front area where they can congregate before the school opens back up for them. Where are they going to go? It's like being in a house. They're going to go to the largest space where they can congregate, right? Well, if the front area where they park is inviting, it's warm, it feels good, it's natural, it's got nature intent to it, where are they going to go? They're going to go there.
Yep.
So another question I asked him, because I already knew the answer to it, but I wanted to be able to talk about these kind of things. I said, have you noticed that the kids at the high school level, the middle school level, the elementary level, because he's done it in every one of the campuses, each level. I said, have you noticed that they're more calm and less stressed? He said, oh my gosh. He said, it's unbelievable. He said, you think about middle school and high school kids and how now these kids have already been through LiiNK in elementary school. And so they've been through 4 recesses a day, 15 minutes each in their elementary years. But when they get to middle and high, they only have one break, and that's during the lunchtime. And they can have up to 30 minutes of a break during that time. He said, it's amazing. They're all congregating outdoors now in these areas that have become so creative with making the spaces more natural and more inviting. He said, they're not staying inside. Even the ones that are inside kids, they're all going outside to be social and to just really do what they want to do in those spaces. So that's kind of I just wanted to throw that out to begin with, and I want to give you opportunities to ask other questions. But I think that's a premise that we all need to think about in different spaces and what we do out there in many different directions.
I think with the boulder, the rock, like that, when I've done one of my play events with teens, all that they wanted to do, there was a group of girls and they said, can we go sit on the playground? And I was like, yeah, go ahead. She's like, you're not going to yell at us, because they wanted to climb on top of the playground where that tube is that you crawl through. And there were like 5 or 6 girls, and they sat there for 2 hours and they just gabbed. That's all they wanted. They just wanted a place to hang out that was a little bit higher and like made for them to sit. And that's it.
Yep.
And that was perfect. That was how they needed to play that day.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when you think about the developmental levels and where their focus is, if we go back to Erickson or whatever, whichever one you want to think about, it is so important that that social element is present, because the kindergartners are wanting to marry each other, right? So, and they're having their marriage ceremonies. Oh my God, the weddings I had in kindergarten was amazing. And the third and fourth graders or first and second graders just want to play with each other. And then as they move up, then their play changes and doesn't, we hope, always have to be sports related. But their play changes based on where they are in their development. And so what Lindsay was talking about with the girls wanting to be up high and just have a place to be quiet and not be interrupted so that they could talk. Those having those natural spaces around that where people don't feel like they're on top of each other is, I think, magical for middle schoolers and high schoolers.
It really is. And people think, oh, well, middle schoolers or high schoolers, they're just going to get in trouble. They're just going to go out there and try to find the hiding area. So if you put a berm out there with a tunnel going through it, you know where those kids will be. They'll be in there making out in the tunnel, and we can't have that. But what we're seeing with what he's done on these campuses is they've been so uniquely done that the kids just gravitate to want to have space where they can release the stress and just be normal. They've got so many test pressures on them and so many content hours that they're having to just be on, that it's just a place where they really enjoy being. So yes, I will say I've learned over the years that the balls can come back on the playground after they hit 4th grade.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And the reason I say that is because if they've been in the schools since pre-K or kinder and they've learned the rules of engagement, and when I say that, these are things that kids learn if they do play regularly. Okay. They'll learn that when a child pushes another child away, that means stop. They learn that when they're wrestling, they know when it's time to stop because it's getting uncomfortable for themselves and somebody else. And they'll just get up and walk away, right? They know that when somebody's hurt or frustrated or anxious about something, they know they need to go over and see what's going on. They know that there are times that they're going to be in moods, and so are others. They learn these things. And so when it comes to empathy, it becomes part of their DNA. They really start developing that again, which I found when I was first starting LiiNK. Empathy was missing from kids.
Yes.
It was missing entirely. And that's why the positive action curriculum was so important, is to introduce empathy back to the kids. And I will say, I'm going off on a tangent here, but it's important for everybody to hear this. When you've got a school full of kids who don't have empathy, bullying is going to be rampant. Because they don't think about each other. They're only for themselves past the age that we know developmentally is appropriate for them to be that way, right? Which is kinder and first. So once you get there and now you've got everybody out for themselves, which reminds me kind of where we are, period.
Currently.
Yeah. And that comes from generations of lack of play. I mean, it's just, that's all we think about. So if we have kids who have gone through play daily and often, when they get to 4th grade, introducing the ball back out there to them, you will find that a lot of times they don't pick teams like they used to. They just get the ball and they go play with the ball. They also, if given the opportunity to have those, the play times prior to, they may not play with the ball at all. Now, you will have some kids that's just what they want to do. They are just so wired for that. But when you have other opportunities out there, for example, I didn't talk about loose parts, but we did that grant this past fall. And have I talked about that on here?
Not enough, because I know you were doing the grants and you were providing some loose parts on the playgrounds, but I think that's as far as we had gotten.
Okay. Well, let me go ahead and introduce that concept as well. It was highly successful. It was done in 10 schools down in the valley of Texas. So very much South Texas area.
Born and raised in the Rio Grande Valley.
Yep.
where
That's where it was. Exactly. In the McAllen area. It was PSJA, which is FAR, San Juan Alamo.
My high school. Just so you know.
And they are so progressive. They are a great district to work with, and they are just hungry for anything that somebody can do to help their kids be more healthy and more active. They are all in favor. So I spent $1,500 per school through the grant, Blue Cross Blue Shield Texas grant, to buy loose parts, and we made them uniform across the schools because we wanted to make sure that whatever we were using on one, we used on the others for research purposes and data collection. But it was things like PVC pipe, and we had PVC pipe that some of it was 6 to 8 feet long.
Oh, wow.
Much bigger than any pre-K or kinder would be able to use, right? And teachers at first were like, we can't use that with them. No, you can. They may not pick them up, but let them have them. Let them see what they can do with them. We had burlap material, not sacks, but just burlap material that they used in all kinds of ways. And one in particular, I have all kinds of pictures on this, but the kids had taken, these were the older kids, had taken the burlap material, taken PVC pipe, attached the PVC pipe to the tree, this huge tree, made sure that it was stable. They still held on to it to make sure it stayed stable, attached the burlap across the two PVC pipe areas, and made a hammock.
Oh my goodness.
Now the kids tried to see how many kids could be in the hammock before it would break. Y'all, it didn't break, and they had 6 kids in the hammock. Awesome. It's awesome. They also had different round, and it could be PVC or it might be bamboo types of elements that they could use with connectors to build things. And so they had those. We had an extensive system going on with young kids at one school where they were building a water reservoir. And it was going to clean the water, bring it into their homes. They would have drinking water. They had it all going on. And they started down at this one area where they dug a hole. And then they used the little shovels and, pails to do that. And then they moved it on across, and they had this like a rack kind of thing that they had built with the PVC pipe that was where the water would come in. And then it would go to this cleaning area, and then they would move it on into drinking. Now, trust me, they didn't have any real water going through there because we wouldn't have let them drink that water. But it was great to see that system. Another one had built kind of a fort area with the burlap and the PVC and all that near a fence. And then they had a fire pit that they built with sticks and stones and things like that. And then they were actually making a pizza and could tell me exactly what kind of pizza. And they were pretending like they were actually eating it. And this was 3rd and 4th graders. So it was all over the place with the kinds of things they were doing. But the loose parts were highly successful. One that touched me the most was a PVC pipe with the burlap on the end of it as a flag.
Oh.
And they put it down in the sand, and they said, "This is our home, and this is representing, where we live and what we do." And that was really, really cool to see that. So many things that they could do with those parts, as well as, like I said, with these natural environments. We did not do any natural landscape environments with them because it would have cost more to do that than this. But when I asked Dr. Chadwell about implementing, because I said, okay, granite rocks, those things are expensive. But he's talking more rectangular types that are just, slabs that are cut out. He said, believe it or not, it's cheaper to do those types of landscapes with the berms and the circular concrete pieces that go in there for your tunnels, and then your granite pieces and whatever else you may want to do. Cheaper to do that than it is to put the pieces of equipment on the playgrounds. Now, he and I agree that swings are still a huge hit and great for, vestibular motion. And that climbing, if you don't have trees you can climb, that something that they can climb is also huge to have out there in the play spaces. And he agrees with that. And so he makes sure that they still have those types of things. But yeah, it's loose parts, huge, need to have them, as well as the other. They love the wagons too, and the buckets and those kind of things.
I think what's so beautiful is that it's so simple, and we try to make it so complicated.
Yeah.
That PVC pipes and connectors.
I know.
And they'll look at you and go, "What do I do with this?" You'll go, "Whatever you want." It's like they're that creativity comes back in, and that planning. I mean, think about those second and third graders, I think, with the water filter system as they were going through. How many days do they go back and continue to look at that over and over and over again? Think about the attention to task, what they thought about overnight that they needed to do the next. Oh my goodness.
I know.
And it's much more attainable too for all districts to do that, because you can really ask the community, like you ask the local companies for their leftover stuff, where you put all this money into a $700,000 playground and they break the slide and now you can't even use the entire structure, right? Where you could take a quarter of that, even 10% of that, and create something that just, again, it doesn't look like a typical playground, but the kids are going to treat it just as such.
Absolutely.
And especially where you have so many trees like Texas does, and so many trees like Pennsylvania does, and trees fall, and so then you have logs that you can bury in the ground at different heights and different. I mean, it's so much. It's so much more appropriate for their development than it is to have a stable, static piece of equipment out there. I mean, they just get bored with it. I mean, how many times do you, especially if your teacher doesn't let you climb up the slide. So,
and if you take the same principle and you say, hey, what do we do in middle and high school? Having these natural landscapes brings a whole new perspective to how middle schoolers and high schoolers are going to interact with those spaces, right? But think about it this way too. He was talking about one of the schools. It's a high school, I think. The new high school that they just built has the theater, music, dance areas on one side of this area that the kids like to congregate. And on the other side is the lunch area, right? So they've got these two areas on either side of this space. And I got to thinking about that because I saw in Finland, which I thought was so awesome, is during their playtimes, they would come outside in middle and high school. They would come outside and they would actually play their instruments, write music, do different types of sculptures out there. They'd bring their clay out and start making sculptures. They would do all kinds of stuff out there while they had their lunch break, or when they had a different play break, if they gave them that. In Finland, they do. They still have those 4 unstructured play breaks, even in middle and high. But here, he said it really brought unique opportunities because now kids can come out for so many different reasons and use those granite areas to sit, or just bring another chair out to put their feet up on the granite and, sit there and beat their drums or play a flute or whatever it might be. And it took me to another area, which I know y'all probably know, Sedona, Arizona, which is it's my happy place where I can regain my energy all the time. But it reminds me of being in those red rocks and someone going up there barefoot, walking up those red rock areas and sitting up and just playing a flute. And you hear them while you're out hiking, and it's very peaceful, right? Same thing is happening on middle and high school campuses when you start introducing spaces that are close to to where they might already be for time. And you start hearing music out there, and that provides calmness as well. But we know that nature in and of itself is a calming agent, right? So it's we need to start thinking differently.
You're right, and not one that we're taking advantage of. I mean, I've been to preschools, early care and education programs that have a beautiful forest outside, and they never go. They're on
it's crazy
playground. I know, it's crazy. It's
okay,
like
so same thing happened. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I just think I think we're so in a box.
Yep.
That we can only be in a fenced area, and we can only have these, the standard space, spongy stuff or the awful stuff that is on those playgrounds that are required to be on those playgrounds, and there's no thought of using the space that you have that's outside the fence.
Yeah.
Deb, too, I think it falls back on like what you and I had spoken about previously about that idea that some of the younger teachers don't know, they've not experienced it themselves. So to get them to even think of going outside or to use the little wooded area or to take the path through the little hike through the woods that's on the property, I don't even think that that's something that all teachers will think of at this point because some of them really have never experienced it themselves.
No, and Lindsay, you are so right about this. You know, if you've got a teacher that does have that outdoor spirit, that teacher will start telling the others, hey, I'm taking my kids out here to the woods to go play. It piques interest for other teachers. But if you don't have a teacher on the campus that has that outdoor spirit, or they become so indoor driven that they don't really think about it, they just stay indoors. And I think having these kind of spaces where it'll make them click, oh my gosh, look at this space. Wouldn't this be cool to go out and read with my kids? Or have a writing area with my kids, not writing like riding a horse, but using your writing skills. I think those kind of things will help maybe push, to spark that interest a little bit.
Well, when the weather was nice and we had more students that were coming to face-to-face classes in the college setting since COVID, oh my God. And some of it is because they're working full time, right? And trying to go to school. But, when I had classrooms of 35 students, college students, we went outside all the time. We went outside and they shared their reflections about something, or we did activities outside. And I still do that with the ones who come face to face. But, and what was so interesting, I think, is that if we went outside to play, like we were doing physical development and we had potato sacks and we had the parachute and we had jump ropes and we had jacks and we had sidewalk chalk and we had all sorts of things that were outside, and balls, because they would bounce the balls off the bricks. We had kids coming from everywhere, from the can we play? Can we play? College students that were like, can we play? Can we play? Of course you can. And you don't, we have a beautiful campus and you just don't see we're the only people that go out there.
Isn't that sad? We have a beautiful campus too. And one of my favorite areas is between the design school, the performance arts area, and the business school. My favorite of all favorites. Why? It has two paths that meet across but have crossover bridges, water areas, waterfalls that you can actually hear the water while you're over in that area. And it's in an area, and I hate to say this, but it's in an area where most of the people that I just mentioned from those three areas are indoor people.
Oh.
They're indoor people. And so one of the things that I'm trying to educate on our campus about is take advantage of these spaces to do your creative work. I mean, it's just, they're awesome spaces. And it's like, I don't want to see them empty. No. Get out there and use those spaces. So it's, yeah, I agree with you, Deb. You know, you've got to have, you've got to get people to start thinking differently, because they see it and they just say, oh yeah, it's there. Or they may not even notice it.
Right.
I've asked people over there before, hey, did you notice how beautiful your area is? Well, where? What?
Yep.
You know, they just don't even notice. So it's unbelievable how indoor we've become as a society.
I tend to get it's a great idea, but it's not realistic. That seems to be the common phrase that I always get from people.
Isn't that crazy?
I know, right? Even with something as simple as like doing a nature playground. You know, last night even I had someone say, it's a great idea. I've built playgrounds for 30 years, but it's never going to work. I'm like, but you were a product of it, right? Like,
yeah,
you're up this way.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so any closing thoughts you want to make so that people hear that? I can't wait. And just so you know, the proposals for New Zealand are open through February the 17th.
Yep.
And I just did a porch play chat with Sherelle from New Zealand. So that's going to air on February 1st. So she has some great tips for making your plane tickets, believe it or not, in the middle of February.
Oh, wow.
Uh-huh.
Okay, I'll be listening to that podcast.
Yeah. Yeah. And so seeing the images too, I want to see the berms and the granite rocks. But I do think that if we could get people to recognize that, and of course the companies will hate us, but you don't need to buy that thing, that huge structure.
Mm-hmm.
There's lower cost ways to do it, but there's also more beneficial ways to do it.
Yeah.
And
you know how I look at what you just said. Yeah, I don't want to put a company out of business.
No.
But if this will help them hear that that's the wrong direction that they're going, and start making their own creative adjustments, then we can have competition in the right area. But right now, there are one or two design people that will make these adjustments. And that's sad that we are that minimized on what we can do by who is available to actually make that happen. Now there are really good ones around in other areas, but because somebody's put their name on a school playground, or we can do this for schools at this level or whatever, that's part of the problem, is that you've got to find design people that will do other things. And it also needs to be done when you first build schools, or if they've already been built, then you need to have those design people go back out there and say, how can we make some adjustments to this school, and how much will it cost, and those kind of things. But all in all, you asked if there are some tips that I have at the end. I would say for parents, if you dumped, a pile of dirt in your driveway that you're going to put into the landscape at some point, go ahead and dump it early. And let your kids play on it for months before you finally are going to take it and put it wherever it's going to be put, right? And if you need to put plastic over it when it's going to get too cold or too wet outside, go ahead and do it. But get your dirt mounds and put them out there so that the kids can play on them. Find ways of having, like in my backyard, I've got 2 water features, but have them where it's appropriate for the kids to just go splash in that water. So maybe it's lower level to the ground, and they can just go sit in the middle of the water feature area and just play in the water, right? I mean, there are things like that that are not expensive. You can order a lot of this stuff online and dig a shallow hole, not to bury the child, but to bury the water feature, and have a fun little thing there. And you may say, well, just having those little wading pools would be fine. They would, but they're not as interesting.
They're not as connected.
No.
But you could take a hose, take your garden hose, and you just get the little adapter and hook it up to a sink that someone's tossed,
Yeah.
and now you have the mud kitchen.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, so many things you can do, right? So, home life, you can do it. You can do it on schools. You can do it at businesses. I think the more corporate settings can create these natural environments for people to go to. One of my really good friends who was also a student of mine, he's done all kinds of stuff since leaving our master's program with me, and then also the MBA with TCU as well. He's now working for GE, but he was working for Lowe's out of Tennessee or North Carolina. I think it's in North Carolina. Anyway, Lowe's actually created an awesome landscape for people to go out and walk a trail, go sit out and have a picnic, have different areas that they can go and just be creative and work within those environments. So it's not like corporates aren't doing that in some ways, but if you hear this, start moving it across everything we do. Natural landscapes are the heartbeat of who we are. Plant life, tree life has the heartbeat of our human heartbeat. It regulates us. We need to be outside more. We need to quit thinking that the indoors is the place to be. It needs to be more outdoors as much as possible. That's my tip.
And you'll be healthier.
Absolutely.
Because when you're inside, you have all those germs.
Oh my gosh. Well, and it hurts your eyes, your breathing. I mean, everything.
Everything. Oh, everything. Well, this has, of course, been wonderful. So stay right there while we close out. To learn more about IPA USA, please visit our website at ipausa.org. And until next time, keep on playing.